Hello, everyone. We are live. You can fast forward about 15 minutes if you're watching this on the replay, and we'll get started. Otherwise, this is the pre-show where we do the stuff before the show, thus the term pre. Let's see if we can get chat rooms set up so that everybody can participate, so that I can participate. Maybe we don't want that. Of course we want that. Let's save that. Now we can see it on my site. Let's see if it shows up now. It does. Okay. And we can kind of clear out everything that's in there from days ago. Clear chat room history. Boom. All right. That's better. Make sure that's live. There's somebody else chatting with me and I can't see it because my monitor doesn't go up high enough. There we are. All right, everybody, welcome. We'll get started shortly. There's a live link. There's a live link. Okay. All right. That works. Let's get all situated here. Let's change the website so that the promo bar looks proper. There we go. I think everything else is set up. We'll be getting a email /Facebook /Google Plus /Twitter blast in about 10 minutes. I need a vocal zone. One moment, please. That's better. Wait. I can't hear me. Let's plug in. Now I can hear me. All right, let's do a check of cameras. Camera 1. Is that too high? I think it's okay. I think it's all right. Because it's cameras here. See, it's a little too high. A little bit. I think it's okay. How's it look down here? That's all right. We will do fine because when this thing comes up here, yeah, you need to be able to see heads and everything else. So camera 2, camera 3, camera 4, 3 and 4 with talking head. See, it all works out. About the graphics page. Does that work? It does. All right. What else do I need to get going here? I have stuff on my screen I need to put up. We need to go to the Socrative page. Let's do that. Get that all together. We can log out of my PDU. We can start a quiz. That's not what I was expecting to see. That was not what I was expecting to see. Okay. Fortunately, it is the right thing, even though it's not expected. It was just not named properly. Whoosh. Woo. All right. Let's start a quiz. Network Plus Study Group. That's what we're doing today, right? Just checking. Just wondering. And there we go. Now we've got stuff up and running. I do not have Cisco related videos, at least not at the moment. Wouldn't that be fun though? Let's see, I need course notes. That would be good. Yay. That works. All right. What else is up and running that I should not have up and running? How about messages? Let's get rid of that. How about, what else? I think that's it. All right. It is the chat. Is this chat? Are we here? Why are we here? Why are any of us here? We'll get existential. It'll be a deep study group. We're going to start in about just under 8 minutes. So let's see. Is there anything else I need to do here? No. Okay, good. Bueno. Yeah, to be a what? What's up with that? There is someone at my front door. Let's see who's at my front door. Okay. How about we get some cooling? What's the temperature in here? That's not in here. We're going to need something going on there. It's right there. We'll see how that goes. Hi, chat room. Hello. It is a normal day. That is to say, is completely abnormal. Sort of what you would expect, isn't it? All right. What are we doing today? What's going on? What time is it? Who am I? We can quit that. Record. We need to record stuff. See, I knew there was a thing. Let's eject. Let's move over the SSDs to the recording mode. They're green as they are being initialized. They'll turn off when they are. This thing just keeps folding closed, doesn't it? Can't see it. Boom, boom. And record. And those are recording. Very nice. All right, tweets have gone out. You know what didn't happen? Is I did not clear off enough space to record. So let's stop that. Let's put it back in the reader. And let's clear some room out first, because I've been busy. And I've already edited the one from last week, so we can remove that one. That'll give us plenty of room. There it is. We can delete. Ow. Turn that down. We can empty the trash. Maybe. Open the Finder, and I can empty the trash. There we go. So I have to turn down the volume now. Sorry about that. And that should be plenty of room. And it is. Now we can eject. Now we can. It's going to eject. There it goes. Back to the recorder. Isn't this just gripping video? Isn't this fun? All right, and record. And we are recording. There we go. Do a tech podcast. Yes, with all this time that I have, I could do a tech podcast. This is sort of like a tech podcast in a way, an hour a week or so, with a week off or two during the month, depending on. Not sure what a tech podcast would be that I would do. Well, I sort of do. I have a list of things that I would do, but it's all about the amount of time, isn't it? These 100-hour weeks just tend to catch up with you. You know what I'm saying? All right. We're at 2 minutes. 2 minutes. And we'll do a thing. And I think I've got everything lined up properly. If not, it'll just be a thing that we do. We'll get through it. I could probably bring up some questions as well. What did I do with those? Let's bring these up, have them available anyway. This would be my Network Plus study group. Nice. And let's export. Here we go. And so you can't see these. We're going to do this. See? No, you don't get to see everything. All together now. And let's hide some stuff. And now I got questions. Let's sort by. Da, da, da. This has been a fun one to put together. Date added. Did I write the dates right? Yes. Yes, I did. And let's hide some stuff. And let's make it bigger on my screen because I can't see stuff. I know you can't see this on your screen, but that's by design. All right, good. Yeah, we got them. Hire someone. Why, that's crazy. I actually did. I have a marketing director now. But I have my marketing director marketing and directing. All right. It's about time, isn't it? I think it is. Let's get things ready to go. Play that. And we should start a thing, shouldn't we? Wouldn't that be great? I agree. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the December 2015 Professor Messer Network Plus Study Group. This is our monthly study group. We get together. I ask you questions. You answer them online interactively. We can all work together to see what we think we know and what we think we don't know. And then hopefully at the end of this, we learn something like a Saturday morning cartoon. This is where I also have a lot of questions that you send me throughout the month, things that I've written down. I open up phone lines in the second hour, and you can even call in and ask anything you'd like, whether it's about Network Plus or really anything else. This is really up for grabs, whatever you'd like to do. This is a monthly study group I do. If you'd like to track what we do during the week, you can, of course, always have a look at the ProfessorMesser.com website. There's also things that I do, like, for instance, my Network Plus offline course. You can have a look at that at ProfessorMesser.com/GetNetPlus. You can, of course, follow me on the Twitter at ProfessorMesser.com/Twitter. Subscribe to me on YouTube, ProfessorMesser.com/YouTube. And don't forget about your discount vouchers, 10% off your Network Plus exam or any CompTIA exam at ProfessorMesser.com/vouchers. You can find me anywhere. Just type ProfessorMesser.com/Facebook/Instagram/LinkedIn. Just put /something, and I'm sure you'll find it in there somewhere. If you haven't seen my offline course, it's pretty nice. It's all of the videos I have online because, of course, you can watch every single video that I make online for absolutely free. But a number of you would like to have these offline, or maybe just like MP3 files that you could listen to when you're driving in your car, or you're on the train, or you're whatever you're doing. And this is a way to another way that you can learn this information. If you'd like to know more about this, along with my course notes, and I'll talk about my course notes later, you can see that at ProfessorMesser.com/GetNetPlus. Now, there's a few ways that we can interactively communicate today during this live study group. One of the easiest ways is through a service called Socrative. So if you open up a new browser window, or you load up a Socrative app that you can get from Google Play or the iTunes App Store or the Microsoft Windows Store, or in a Chrome browser, in the Chrome Web Store, there is a Socrative student app because you're the student. And in that student app, or from the Socrative.com website, click the student login button that's right there at the top and go to the room that's named Professor Messer. Make sure you spell that right, or you'll be the only one in the room, much like I always was going into the wrong room in college. So make sure you spell it properly, ProfessorMesser. And if you spell it properly, you'll see a question there already that says, how long have you been studying for your Network Plus certification? Let's get a little bit of real estate here. And would it be less than 3 months, 3 to 6 months, 6 to 9 months, 9 months to a year, over a year, or you already have your Network Plus certification? This is kind of nice. You can see interactively in real time. I can see as you're voting. So I get to know whether you get the question right or whether you don't get the question right. And of course, it doesn't point you out as an individual. So don't feel bad about making a guess. Nobody's going to know what you answered. So that part's good. You can be anonymous, but it's almost like taking the exam yourself. You're sitting in front of the exam, you're pushing the button on what you think the right answer is. You'll lock it in, and then we'll see if the answer is actually correct. So also, if you're watching this on YouTube Live, another interactive way we can do this is through my website chat. You'll notice on YouTube, there's no chat available. There's no communication that you can do from the live video. So you can, of course, go to the Professor Messer website, ProfessorMesser.com/live. And if you do that, you will be able to participate in the chat room. So people can ask questions, such as Corey, who asks, can I get continuing education unit credits for this? And you absolutely can. Sometime in this hour, I will give you a super secret code word that you will send to me that makes me understand that, yes, indeed, you must have watched this. So be ready for that when it happens. I'll give the instructions out, and you'll be able to send that in to me. It's a very simple process, and I send you back a PGP signed email so that nobody can have this certificate, if you will, a digital email except for you, and that way you know it was something that I sent and nobody else did. This is also the Network Plus exam, something that's really only been around since February. We're in December of 2015 as we're creating this video. But if you're watching this on a replay, this could be months into the future, you should, of course, know the latest version of the Network Plus certification at this point is the N10006. That is the latest version, the only version that's available. It was released in February of 2015, so it has not even been out for a year. That means that you've got another at least couple of years before the next version is even introduced, and probably a little bit longer before the current version is retired. So somewhere around February of 2018. So if you're one of the folks who asked me that question earlier today, should I be worried about the Network Plus exam changing? You really shouldn't. You have plenty of time, 2018. So you're really good there. Don't worry about that piece of it. Just take the exam. Just keep working on those details. So that's kind of nice to be able to not have to worry about the exam changing. And this, by the way, is the exam objectives. If you don't have the exam objectives, make sure you go to the CompTIA website and download the objectives right away. That should be the first thing you do, is go to these objectives. So make sure that you do that. You can also get there, professormesser.com/objectives. That will also get you there. That's another quick way to find the objectives. Pardon me, I'm going to take a sip. These winter months, the air is a little bit less humid, isn't it? So we'll try to make it through 2 hours today. This first hour, we're going to do this Q&A. In the second hour, we'll open up the phone line. So it'll be something that we get to do that'll be kind of fun to work through. So let's do a question, shall we? Let's jump right into it. I have one for you. Let's see if I can get this yellow thing sort of on the screen. We'll get it out of the way so it's not bothering me anyway. Let's have a look at one of the most common requests for questions is about the OSI layer. So the question I have for you is about a specific port on the OSI layer, the TCP port on the OSI layer, and wanting to know effectively what OSI layer is commonly associated with a TCP port. If you know the answer, do not answer in the chat room. Instead, go to socrative.com, go to the student login button, just as it shows there, and go to room name exactly as it's listed here, Professor Messer, ProfessorMesser. And if you think you know the answer, you'll be able to answer one of these particular layers. This is not one of those multiple choice questions where you only get 4 options. I give you every layer. Is it layer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7? And then you have to decide which one is most commonly associated with the TCP port. So hopefully you know about that piece. That should be good to go through and figure out what the correct answer is. No Googling. That's one of our standing rules. Pretend you're sitting in the exam and you're ready to take the exam. You're ready to hit the button. Make your best guess. And we'll be able to tell if you get it right after we have a look at this. We'll look at what the answer happens to be. For those of you that are asking about continuing education units that I mentioned earlier, you would need to have an existing certification to be able to accumulate continuing education units. You can't accumulate CEUs prior to having a certification that you will then apply them towards. That would be backwards. You first have to have the certification, then you have to renew it by using those continuing education units. So that's what that's about. So I'm going to sneak a peek at how we're doing with this one. My goal with these questions, for those of you that have followed us before, is that I want to get at least half of you knowing this answer. So I try to make them, somewhat difficult. This one's very straightforward. This one's kind of a one-step process. You have to know TCP ports, and I guess maybe the second step would be what OSI layer it applies to. So let's see how we did with this one. You can see the majority of us, 57%, 58% said, oh, that's layer 4. I think I hit the wrong button there. There we go. Do I not have my button up? Oh, I don't. I'm going to have to change this so I can have a highlighter so you can see it. 58% said, oh, yeah, that's absolutely the one we were thinking about, which was layer 4. Layer 3 came in a close second. Well, not so close, really, if we look at it that way. I'll show you the details on these once I get the information up on my screen that you can have a look at. There is, the OSI layer has to be one of the probably top 3 requests that I get for questions. And I think it's because it's such a nebulous concept. It's not a real thing. You can't look at it. It's not a physical interface. There's nothing that is that you can point to, that you can touch. It's a concept. And in fact, in many ways, it's a concept we fight over. Here we're fighting. 60% said layer 4, 22% said layer 3, 8% said layer 5. Then it kind of drops off from there. So we think it's somewhere in the middle. We've got a nice curve there, nice bell curve right there around layer 4. But is that really the right answer. Let's have a look at how TCP is considered in the OSI model. I have the OSI model here on the left side of the screen from layers 1 all the way up to layer 7. You can see all of those there. And of course, you can see that we're talking about layer 4, the transport layer is the slide I happen to have up. I call this the post office layer, but that's the way I think about it, because it has all of these letters that it's sending between addresses. And of course, those separate addresses are different people. I think of the people as being the port numbers. You can send everything to a particular IP address, but what service is it really addressing? We address those services by TCP or UDP port number, TCP being the transmission control protocol and UDP being the user datagram protocol. This is one where if you start looking at the OSI model and you're looking at firewalls, I think traditionally we think of firewalls as a layer 4, although these days, of course, today's firewalls can go up to layer 7 and do well beyond what we traditionally think of a firewall. But when we think from a legacy perspective of what a firewall allowed or did not allow, we traditionally thought of that as something that looked at an IP address and a port number. Those two things together, a port number being that layer 4 OSI model address. And that's where we start getting into the details of this. So this was a good one to jump off on. You can see that all of the different layers are on the left side of the screen, so we can get a feel of what those are. That is one where if you answered layer 4, which would be option D here, the 61% of you got that one absolutely right. So well done. It's not layer 3. Layer 3 would be IP addresses. Layer 5 through 7 are things happening more upper level with the application, and things below layer 3 are things more down on the network side. It's one of the benefits of representing things with the OSI model is you can really start to understand how the network communicates back and forth. And when you're talking with someone else who's working with the network and you say, I think our problem is really at layer 3, they understand it's an IP address issue, or you think you have a problem more with a layer 1 physical issue rather than a layer 3 routing issue, well, then people can understand exactly what you're talking about. It's a good way to communicate. And this is used very, very commonly. The last position I had was one where I used this multiple times a day to describe, explain, educate, understand, troubleshoot. We used it for many different purposes. It's very, very common to use this model in networking, and that's one of the big reasons we still use this. OSI, of course, originally was a protocol, and as a protocol, OSIs didn't really take off. TCP/IP took off, but we still use the OSI model because it does describe quite nicely how the network operates. Let's do another question, shall we? Moving ahead. In which of these would you be most likely to use a looking glass? Well, that certainly is a two-step process, because what in the world is a looking glass? And of course, you'll need to answer that. If you think you know the answer, don't ask and they'll mention it in the chat room. You should instead go to Socrative.com to room name Professor Messer, where I have these options for you. Is it which of these would you be most likely to use a looking glass? Would it be determine the amount of light through a fiber? Would it be to test a link for throughput? Would it be to view ISP routing tables? Would it be to obtain a list of all available wireless networks? Or would it be to capture packets from a file server? It's got to be one of these, right? One of these would be the most likely reason for using a looking glass. Looking glass, this comes directly from those CompTIA Network Plus exam objectives. So I've had people through the past weeks that I took my Network Plus exam completely thrown by the things they asked of me. And of course, my question to them immediately is, in the exam objectives, what part of it do you think that particular question applied to? And their answer to me is, what exam objectives? So that's one, when I get into those cases, that's when I really am concerned, because that should be your first step. Go to the exam objectives. It tells you everything that's going to be on the exam. Everything that's going to be on the exam. And that's what you want is when people ask me, what do I need to know for the exam? Look at the exam objectives. It has everything you need to know. If you can check off everything in the exam objectives, you're good to go. So let's see how we did with this one, with the looking glass. And in this particular case, let's see how we did. We still have a few more that are getting their answers in after apparently they've Googled. I told you not to do that. So 44% is the high number mark, not a majority, but certainly the largest number here by far is determined the amount of light through a fiber. We have 18%, 17% kind of tied for second. Capture packets from a file server, test a link for throughput. Coming in near the end, view ISP routing tables. We got double digits at 14%. Then 8% said obtain a list of all wireless networks. So this is a case where I believe this was a new topic on the N10006. And this is not something that we often use as an end user. So this could also be one of these things that we're just not accustomed to using. Looking glass sites. We're talking about a website for a looking glass site is used if you want to be able to understand what happens to traffic that you're sending off to a service provider. Once it gets to the service provider, very often these service providers are huge. There are enormous companies with hundreds of thousands of employees. And if you have a question such as, how's my packet getting from my local site to my remote site in another state? You can't really find the right person to tell you these things. Even more challenging, ISPs or service providers that are providing these WAN connections or internet connections have to be able to communicate with each other. They have the same problem we do trying to talk to our wide area network provider. It's very hard to find the right person to communicate with. And these routing mechanisms, the protocols that are in use, the paths that are used between these sites are remarkably complex. They're across very large areas. There are environmental issues you have to think about and be concerned with because there may be breaks in fiber and cable all the time because it's out there in the world. You have things that happen. People will take a backhoe and cut through a fiber. There will be a car accident that takes out a traffic light or takes out a strand of cable that's just run across wires. You just never know where the problems might be. It might have routers that go bad. So it's very useful if we can go to a website and really find automatically what's going on behind the scenes. That's what a looking glass site allows us to do. There's a lot of looking glass sites out there, and you have access to these. They are publicly available. You have to usually agree with a pop-up box that shows up that says you're not going to misuse this, because you certainly could. But these looking glass sites are fantastic because they allow you to run options such as a ping, a trace route, show BGP route, show BGP dampened, show BGP flap statistics. You can put in the IP address that you're trying to get route information on. I put in the 8.8.8.0/24. I don't know if that applies specifically to the end network, but I know that's generally the direction I wanted to get information on. And this is the Sprint.net looking glass that showed me from the Anaheim region. Show me this. And I can choose any of the regions. You can pop open this box and look anywhere on the Sprint network. What is the perspective of where this traffic goes based on this location? So in Anaheim, to get to 8.8.8.0/24, anything going to that particular network route, here's all the routing table entries for that. Gives me the breakdown. So if you're trying to figure out what's happening on my network, you may want to have this available. These looking glass sites are very easy to find. Go to the Google, ask the Google, looking glass, and the name of your network provider. And that will be very helpful to have that understanding of how the traffic is getting from point A to point B. You really cannot beat the visibility you have at these looking glass sites and being able to find that information. So if we go back to the question, in which of these would we be most likely to use a looking glass? Well, in a way, I gave you a trick at the point because I thought, what's glassy? Well, fiber is glassy, so determining the amount of light through a fiber, that is not the correct answer. That is not what a looking glass does. It does not test a link for throughput. It does not obtain a list of all wireless networks, and it does not capture packets from a file server. So therefore, answer C, the 16% of you got this one correct. This is a way to, it can do a lot of different things, but one of the things that it can do is to view your internet service provider's routing tables. So that is what we're looking for when we talk about using and troubleshooting using a looking glass. A very useful thing to know. And don't worry if you didn't get that one right, because not getting one right really solidifies in your mind what the answer might be. So if you get a question about looking glass in your exam, you're going to know it has something to do with those ISPs and how it's working with those pieces of it. Well, I have another question for you. Let's keep this thing going. I've got another one. This one, you're going to have to do a little bit of work because I want you to do a number conversion for me. This is something, by the way, that's relatively new on the N10006, is you have to understand how binary, decimal, hexadecimal, and octal all work together. So you're going to need to know how to do these conversions with that. And so the question I have is, what is decimal 154 in binary? And I'm just giving you an open question. You're just going to have to figure this one out and type it in. I'm not giving you multiple choice on this one. So going back to that question, could the same thing be done with a trace route with the ISP address? It could be done from your perspective, but you want to see what the trace route is from a particular router that's inside the other network, because that's where you're trying to figure out where's my traffic going and where should it be going. So that's an important one to go through. So make sure you have a look at that as well. This is one where a perspective of where you are is important, but being able to hop around the provider's network and understand what are they seeing, especially if a route disappears. Suddenly you're not able to communicate to a site. Why is that? How far am I getting? I'm getting to this location. Well, let me go into the router at that location and see where its route is pointing. And then at that point, you're more informed of what's going on with the network. You can call into your provider's help desk and say, I'm having a problem. I'm not able to communicate to this site. I've already done some troubleshooting. I'm looking at your Anaheim POP. I noticed at that point of presence that there is a routing issue, that it's pointing the wrong direction. Maybe it was a mistake made with the config, or maybe that particular link is down. Can we route around? That kind of thing. Very, very easy to have that. So now we have to do a calculation, 154 in binary. You know, this is not new. The binary part is not new on the Network Plus exam. This has been around on the Network Plus exam since a couple of versions, I think. We had to at least do binary conversion. On the latest version of the Network Plus exam, we have to be able to do conversions in hexadecimal and in octal. So those two things were added along with the decimal piece and binary that we had done earlier. And it can only help you. If you're going to be doing subnetting, there are a lot of shortcuts to be able to do IP subnetting, but behind the scenes, back at the fundamentals of what's going on, all of the calculations are being done in binary. So it's really useful to be able to perform these binary calculations. It becomes extremely important when you start getting into subnetting, and it helps you in other places as well, especially when you're looking at some of these error messages that pop up and they're written in hexadecimal, they're written in binary. It'd be nice to be able to do some conversions back and understand what that is. So let's see how we did. There's just everybody's putting their answers in, and I can see on my side what a number of the answers are. You folks are really good at doing your binary conversions. I can tell right now that you've been practicing, and even got a smiley face. It's very nice at the end of that one, because did you even get it right? Let's make sure you got it right. Yes, you got it right, and you put a smiley face. I think you knew you got it right. So let's step through 154 in binary. I'm not showing those answers, by the way, because they're coming in individually, and I didn't want to show them quite yet, because we're going to break this down for what this really is. An entire byte, a number that we think of, is these 8 bits. You'll hear them called octets as well, and that's why it's important to be able to do an octal conversion. If you're going to be doing a binary conversion, here's what you can do, is just create a chart. Especially on your exam, you've got that piece of paper or whiteboard that they give you. You can write this down. So what you'll want to do is create these 8 zeros, 8 steps, 8 places on the paper. And on the far right, you want to put the number 1. Then you want to double it, put a 2. Then you want to double it, put a 4, and then double it again, put an 8. You see what we're doing? We're just keep doubling and doubling and doubling, and we get those numbers up there. Once we have that doubled, if you wanted to really look into the math of this, this is 2 to the 0 power, 2 to the first power, 2 to the second power, 2 to the third power, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. It's binary, so it's 2 to the particular power that we're looking at there. Now, if we have that chart created, it becomes so easy to do a decimal to binary conversion. So let's take the example that we did, 154, and let's do a decimal to binary conversion. We'll put down our 8 different options there, our 8 different stops, if you will, and we're going to put our little chart right on the top. 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. And since we're doubling, it's very easy to calculate this in your head. You don't have to remember 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. You just keep doubling. and you'll build it yourself. The next one after 128 would be 256. So we can just keep doubling and doubling until we have as many places as we need. Now, what we're trying to determine is this 154 in binary. So one of the things that we're looking at is we need to somehow create the ones and zeros that make up 154, this decimal version. How can we convert that to binary? So now we start doing some math in our head. This is very easy. We start looking at what number are we looking at? 154. So we look at, is 128 less than or equal to 154? It absolutely is. And if we answer yes to these questions, we put a 1 in that place. And now we bring down the total 128. So now we take 128 and we subtract it from 154, because now we've at least got 128 of those numbers out of the way. So if we take 128 and then we look at this value and trying to figure out, does 64 fit into this? If we add 128 plus 64, is that going to be less than or equal to 154? The answer is no. We add those together, it's much more than 154. All right, so we'll put a 0 there. We're not going to add 64 to it. Let's add 32 to it. 128 plus 32, that's 160. Is that less than or equal to 154? No, that's still more than 154, so it's a 0. And you just perform this step over and over again. That's how easy it is to convert between decimal and binary. So is 128 plus 16 less than or equal to 154? Well, you can see it's equal to 144. So yeah, that is less than or equal to 154. So we add a 1. So now we have 128 plus 16. So the number we're going to evaluate all of these across is now 144. So 144 plus 8 is 152. That is less than or equal to 154. And we just keep doing it over and over again until we get down to the very last number. 152 plus 2 is absolutely equal to 154. In fact, and of course, we don't have anything left at the end. So now we have this entire process has been set up that shows 154 decimal. Now we've got the binary equivalent, 1001 1010. That is the binary equivalent to 154 decimal. And once you start doing 2 or 3 of these, it just becomes automatic. You can just go down the list. And most of you did exactly that. You put the numbers that are on here are absolutely correct. I'm going to show, gosh, most of you did this one absolutely right. Let me give you an example. You are right on the money. You can see these 1001, 1010. And that's exactly it with that one and being able to work through it. Nice job on that one. You guys know your binary conversions extremely well. Some of you missed it. Now you've got a way you can go back and do this calculation automatically in your head and being able to work through these. So it's a very easy way to get points on your exam if they ask one of these binary questions, and it's going to help you for subnetting. So you really can't beat that either. Good job with that one. For those of you that have watched this for a long time, you know that there are just amazing amounts of content on the Network Plus exam. It is a very broad exam that goes across a number of different topics. Well, what I've done is taken everything from my videos and I've created the most important pictures from my videos, the important text from my videos, the graphs and the charts, the tables, taken all of that information and I put it into a set of course notes. This is if you sat down and took notes yourself, except I've done it for you. I've created these notes. This doesn't replace a book, of course, and it doesn't replace my videos, but it's a great way to be able to study for your exam. And I think that's one of the things I need before I walk into the exam. That last week, I need something that just gives me the high points so I can really get those solidified in my mind. And you can see all the pages are here. I've got subnetting and protocols and cabling and fiber encryption, everything that's from the exam objectives. This PDF file is one that you can download immediately and have available to you. I've tried to put everything in there that was important about the networking side of things so that it would all be available to you at a glance. This is also something I've tried to keep the price very low, and so that people have often said, can I contribute to your site? And I don't prefer to take any type of contributions. I prefer more of a give and take model, if you will, where I can, for $10, you can buy this and you get something out of the deal. And I think it's a valuable thing. I think this is something that can really help you before going into the exam. I build these to be something that I would want to use before walking into my certification exams, and I've done a lot of that. So hopefully you'll get the same idea from that as well. If you want to learn more about these course notes, you can find them at professormesser.com/NPCN, the Network Plus course notes. You can also find them on the main page of the Professor Messer website or from the pull-down links at the top under Network Plus. You'll see my course notes are listed in there as well. I want to thank everybody who has purchased these. Every dollar of this goes back to keeping the website going. I cannot thank you enough. Thanks so much. And hopefully some of you that will purchase this, you'll like it as well. So thanks very much for considering that. Let's do another question, shall we? Let's keep this party going. Let's keep these questions going. I'm not sure how much of a party it is, but we'll go with the good side of this. Which of these devices would be the best choice to proxy network communication? Which of these devices would be the best choice to proxy network communication? Well, what devices am I talking about? Well, I'm glad you asked. The answers are WAP, modem, router, hub, firewall, and switch. Which of these devices would be the best choice to proxy network communication? It's going to be one of those. So this is one, this is almost one where you will want to know more about how networking operates. You almost have to have some level of experience in working with these different things in a network and how you would engineer them into the network. And in fact, I think the Network Plus exam objectives expect that you will have 2 years or so of experience in understanding networks and working on networks. And hopefully you'll have some experience working with proxies. And certainly there can be standalone proxies, but these days we see this proxy is also integrated into other devices as well. And that's what I'm asking about here, is which of these other devices would be the best choice to integrate one of those proxies. Let's see how we do with this one. And no Googling, stop that. This is one where if you start getting into more of the networking side of these things, you will be asked all the time how you would integrate these technologies into a network. Maybe you're integrating a switch or a router or a hub or a WAP or modem or a firewall or a switch. I said switch twice. But those things are important when you're trying to determine how do I fit them into the network? How do they interoperate with everything else in the network? How am I going to use this proxy and what's it going to communicate with? That's what we want to know when we're talking about these capabilities and being able to work with them. So let's see how we did with these proxies and being able to work with them. We have, how do we do? 74, 75 or so of you've already sent in the answers. So 49%, not a majority, but very close. Half of you about have said router. Next highest number, 35%, have said firewall. And then the rest are single digits. I think we're sort of torn between those two. Not really torn. We have 48% on router and 33%, but those are the top two. We're trying to determine and work through those two. But is it even those two for those? Well, let's talk about the device that you would most likely find a proxy in. And the answer on this would be a firewall. That's where you find the proxies. As we spoke of earlier, when we were talking about that OSI Layer 4 device, we were talking about a firewall that traditionally filters by TCP or UDP port number. Of course, all the significantly production level firewalls you'll find today understand the applications that are going through the networks. They're really Layer 7 devices. And that's where you start getting into other capabilities. These more advanced next generation firewalls can encrypt traffic going in and out of your network through IPsec tunnels. They can proxy traffic. They can filter by URL. They can route. They can do a lot of different things. They have turned into a central security appliance, a device that does almost everything security-wise or tries to do the bulk of what we have traditionally thought of as being in separate devices. So an IPS, for instance, would be something you would integrate into a next generation firewall. Proxies are not used as much as they used to be used because proxies have a lot of negatives associated with them. They're hard to manage. Not all applications can use a proxy, so it breaks applications in many ways, and it doesn't really add that much more security. It's just a way to put a middleman between you and whatever you're communicating with. A proxy in the chat room, Gab's asking, would this be considered a site-to-site VPN? No, proxies are really designed to be a middleman to communications between you and another device. So a site-to-site VPN we traditionally think of as an encrypted tunnel, like an IPsec tunnel or an SSL VPN tunnel between sites. That is when you start looking at those. In fact, most firewalls are designed to do exactly that level of security. We don't tend to see proxying being done on a router. We don't tend to see IPsec tunnels necessarily being built on routers either. We consider routers being able to route and really focusing on the layer 3 piece. And then we put all those extra types of components out external to the routing functionality. I guess a difference there might be you might have a router that can switch. We, of course, call those layer 2 routers. I'm going to let that one sit there for a while. So if we go back to the best choice for proxy network communication, the firewall, if you answered E, that would be 35% of you got that one absolutely right. It would not be router. The 47% of you that said router would not be the best choice to proxy network communications. It's rarely the choice, although I'm sure there are layer 3 routing devices that are routers that do proxy, but that's not really the best choice for routing. That's not where you, or best choice for proxying. That's not where you see proxies operating. Proxies are usually a standalone device or they're integrated into a firewall because of their security functionalities. So we learned something there, I think. That was a good one to go through. Now, I talked earlier about thinking about designing your network, how you would integrate all of these different devices together. And as a network administrator, you need to understand how to do that. So I have another question for you about design and understanding when you would perform a particular function on the network. So the question I have for you is, which of these would not be a reason to segment the network? There might be many reasons to segment, but I'm looking for the one that is not a reason. And I've given you a few examples. So which of these would not be a reason to segment the network? Would it be to create a honeypot, increase overall performance, protect legacy systems, control data between data center devices, or increase encryption strength? One of these would not be a reason to segment the network. If you think you know what the answer is, don't ask in the chat room. You need to be able to go through this process I have here and be able to do that. I am looking at a number of you answering now. You're doing pretty good with this one, I think. Let's go through the chat room. Oh, they're now all talking about my layer 3 switching that I spoke of earlier. That's something that is sort of it is something that is an ongoing running gag in the chat room about how I have great disdain towards the marketing term layer 3 switch. Layer 3 switch is the one it makes no sense. There is no such thing as a layer 3 switch. And we can just argue all day about that. It never gets dull. And that's why I thought a layer 2 router would be delightful. Because switches don't operate at layer 3 and routers don't operate at layer 2. And that's why it's silly. Which of these would not be a reason to segment the network? Let's find out how we did. Well, we're all over the place, although 50%. Again, I'm searching for that 50% number. Maybe we all got this one right. The 50% of you said increase encryption strength. That was clearly the number one answer. And then I would say tied for second would be almost all the others. Create a honeypot, increase overall performance, protect legacy systems, control traffic between data center devices. This is something the Network Plus exam has started to focus on with this latest iteration. It wants you to understand how you would put these things together to build a network. And on many networks today, we're seeing an increasing number of them perform much more segmentation. And there's a lot of good reasons to segment your network, which is why we're doing more of it. And a lot of the technologies that we're bringing to the table today are allowing us to segment. We didn't used to have the flexibility that we have today to provide this level of segmentation. The segmentation can be one of two different ways. We might want to get completely different devices and create separate parts of the network. In this rack is this network. I'm going to buy a completely different switch and router and firewall or whatever else I'm going to use and physically have different devices in another rack. We rarely see that these days. Why would you buy an entirely separate device, when these days you have all of these methods for virtualization and for combining these capabilities within the same chassis. And that's why we see more of VLAN segmentation or virtual router segmentation or virtual firewall segmentation. It's a great functionality and being able to use it and work through it. We also might want to segment because our applications require a lot of bandwidth. We want to be able to maybe allow just one particular app to have its own network section. It's going to run at high speeds. It's going to use a lot of resources of the switch and the network bandwidth. So let's put it on its own network to be able to do that. One big reason for segmenting these days is security. We may want to have a data center and we may want to segment out the different apps within the data center and not allow traffic to go between different locations that should never traverse the network. This is especially important these days as the bad guys are finding ways to infiltrate our networks. If we're able to limit the scope of where they can go, we're going to limit what the impact would be of a security event. We also have challenges with compliance. A number of networks, especially with healthcare, especially with credit card providers or people that take credit card numbers, need to have a different part of the network that's dedicated for just that set of data. That way they can really check to see who's allowed in and out of that very critical, very important part of the network. Network segmentation can also be used for doing other things like setting up a legacy system. Maybe you've got these really old systems. I used to see this in a number of places I would visit where there is just this one application. It was built to run on Windows 2000, or in a case I ran across, somebody was still running OS 2, not making this up. The app ran in OS 2. The app was not supported any longer, but it ran and it worked. It was this old computer and an old CRT monitor, and it was running OS 2. And I grew up in the OS 2 days, so I'm familiar with this. I'm looking at, hey, that's pretty cool. And they said, well, that's all we got. Just don't touch it. We've made our own little network for it, so nothing else can bother it. We have one guy that knows how to turn it on and off, that kind of thing. That's one of those times where knowing a legacy technology might help you. Segmenting is great for that. Maybe you want to separate the network, the public side of the network from the private side of the network. Maybe you want to be able to have a honeypot or honeynet to be able to do that. On my website, for instance, somebody in the chat room says payment method on my site's not secure. You could not be farther from the truth. Everything on my site regarding payments is secure. I don't even keep credit card numbers. So I don't even have to segment my network to keep those credit card numbers separate, because that's exactly what you want to have, is a case where all of the credit card information is being handled by a third party who does have a segmented network. They have these network segments set up so that they comply with all of the PCI DSS requirements. It is one of those things that becomes incredibly important on this. And as someone who comes from a security background, I worked many years in security. The security on my website is incredibly important, and I've set it up very specifically to make sure that all of the payment methods, all of your member login information, everything's encrypted from end to end all the way through. Nobody can get in there and see that, not even me. I don't even keep or be able to grab your credit card information. I don't want it. So that's a beautiful way to run a website. That's a good reason you might want to segment out your network as well. So let's see how we did with these and being able to look at it. Which of these would not be a reason to segment the network? Create a honeypot. That's a great idea to have a network segment that's just a honeypot setup. Increase overall performance. It could certainly do that if I segmented, so that's not the right answer. Protect legacy systems. Of course it could if I segmented. Control traffic between data center devices. A great reason to do that. And increase encryption strength. Segmenting the network doesn't increase encryption strength at all. 52% of you got that absolutely correct with that. And it is HTTPS, Dario, in the chat room. He's saying, this payment is not secure on my website. Absolutely secure. It is. If you think the page is not secure, you're running across something you're curious about, is this set up the right way? Top of my page and the bottom of my website is a contact us link. You can always send me a note and say, is this right? And I'll explain to you how it absolutely is secure. I've done a lot of work to make sure that it is. So you can go through that process and figure out those pieces as well and being able to work through it. I have more questions for you. Let's do another one. This was a good one, by the way, for understanding how to manage and set up your networks. Incredibly important for the Network Plus exam. So the next question I have for you, speaking of security on our networks, and one of those reasons for segmenting, I have a question about security and being able to work through those. So, which of these protocols would be the best choice for securing all communication between two sites? And I've got you a number of different options for being able to choose which protocols this would be. And the options I have are IPsec, SSH, TLS, SNMP v3, and SFTP. Being able to work through those pieces. You should be able to look through these, which of these protocols would be the best choice for securing all communication between two websites. So this is a two-step question. I like these two-step questions. We have to understand what is the method for communicating between two websites, and then we have to know what these different protocols are and how they would apply to what I'm trying to get out of this piece. Maybe you know what these happen to be, and if you think you do, don't answer in the chat room. You can instead go to Socrative.com, go to the student login, and go to the room Professor Messer, and you will know absolutely from there. So that's one where it does come in handy. I think whenever I start working through these pieces and trying to understand how this process works, you're dealing with so many different scenarios. You're dealing with so many people that are running different protocols through different devices to different locations, but there are some methods of doing this that are very standardized. And I think one of you can absolutely go through here and do that. Now, if you aren't seeing a question in Socrative, then you're in the wrong room. Make sure you go to room Professor Messer, Professor Messer. We have a number of you that have answered, so I know that is one of those that you have absolutely worked through with these pieces and being able to work with them. You know, security and being able to do this on a website is a challenge. Being able to secure between two websites is a challenge. Your security is only going to be good as what you're setting up from end to end. And that's very, very important. In fact, people on my website that are buying things, I always say, my website is set up extremely secure. Make sure your end stations are as well. That's where the bad guys are getting all of the credit cards because they know websites are set up. They know that they've secured communication between locations. They know it's hard. It's practically impossible to be able to decrypt that information. So they're going to the end stations and they're simply doing they're simply tracking the things that you're typing in. They're either doing it on your workstation and they've got a keylogger to determine what you're typing in or capture what you're sending over the network in a decrypted form. Or even worse, and we've seen those, they're logging into the remote site. They're getting through the security at those locations and getting the credit card numbers. And as I mentioned, I don't keep credit card numbers on my site for that very reason. Even if a bad guy got into my site, they wouldn't have your credit card information, which I think is a great way to do this. Let's see how we did with this. Let's see, how do we do? Well, 42% of you said IPsec. The next highest, 24% said SSH, 15% said TLS, and then 10% SNMP v3. We just from A to E, it went exactly in that order. SFTP was 8% with those pieces as well. This is one where whenever I start looking at communicating between sites, I almost always am going to be focused on doing this securely, and so I'm going to need the protocol that's going to be able to do that. There are a number of secure protocols. All of the protocols that I gave you in this list are secure protocols. So you have to know not only are they secure, but which ones am I going to use to communicate between websites? Well, it's not going to be SSH. That's secure shell. That's when you pop things open into a terminal screen where you're at the command line. This would be an encrypted command line communication. That's not file transfers or communication between sites. You also wouldn't do SFTP. That's for sending individual files. And as I mentioned, the question here was to be able to send all communication between two sites. So that's another important part of this. All communication has to be able to communicate from end to end. We also have SNMP v3, Simple Network Management Protocol, being able to work through those pieces. SNMP v3 is for managing remote devices. We can manage them securely. There's encryption. There's a lot of validation of the data going back and forth, but that's just management traffic. That's not all communication. We also have TLS, which is also SSL. That's what we generally call SSL, but these days it's really the TLS protocol. That's when we're communicating through a web browser over an encrypted link. As people on the website, when you go to my purchase page, you go to an extended validation SSL certificate. Not only do you know it's encrypted, it has the name of my company there right at the top, so you know this really is my certificate that you are seeing. It's well documented right in your browser, but that's just browser communication. What if I wanted to protect everything going site to site? And to do that, I think you already knew this, you'd be using IPsec to be able to make that happen. IPsec would be the correct answer here. The 42% of you that said IPsec would have got that one absolutely right. And in fact, if you're watching this video for a continuing education unit credit, then you'll want to go to either the top or bottom of my website where it says Contact Us. Click on that link, put in your name, put in that it is the December Network Plus Study Group, and tell me the secret code word, which is IPsec. And I will send you an email that will be your digital certificate that will also be PGP signed by me. That will be your proof that you indeed did attend this particular event. If we look at these encrypted communication, it's quite remarkable, really. We start getting into it. For instance, here's a packet capture of HTTP. This is me going to, I think I was going to Google on this one. Is that where I went? And I had communication. You can see it's even in the clear. I went to an application that I had set up, and you can even see I'm logging into it. And the login information has the value super secret. So we're able to, that's not what you want. You don't want somebody seeing, first, probably don't have something that says super secret. That's probably not the best choice for a password. Even worse, don't do this over a non-encrypted or an in the clear channel. That's not what you want either in being able to work through those. So you want to be able to work through and understand this in an encrypted form. So you want to use something like HTTPS. And when you do that, look at the difference in the data that is sent. You can't make anything out of that. That makes no sense whatsoever. So if you're trying to work through, is this the method I should be using to communicate securely? Well, absolutely it would be. I can't read any of the information. I can't understand any of the details. I can't break down any of the data that's being sent for the username or the password. It really is much more of a challenge to be able to see that. So make sure that if you're planning communication like I have on my website and you want to be sure everything is encrypted from one end to the other, make sure you're using a protocol like HTTP, like SSH, like FTPS, or between all sites, use something like IPsec. That would be the correct answer in this particular case as well. This is one where when you start getting into all of these different topics and being able to work through all of the pieces that are important to know for this exam, there are a lot of ports, there are a lot of protocols. You have to understand how IPsec works. Maybe you'd like to do an encrypted file transfer. You'd like to capture packets like I just did and examine in the clear versus encrypted. Well, you need to set up a lab to be able to do that. So of course, get your own routers and switches, maybe set up some virtual machines, have some different operating systems in place, and you can do that in your own facility. Have it there on your desktop, maybe in your own personal lab, or you could do something like set up your own lab with something like the GTS Learning Practice Labs. These live labs will provide everything for you in a browser. So I've got their live labs up right now. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at exercise 1, the Internet Protocol Security, the IPsec lab. And it's got servers that are already running. In fact, there's one domain controller. In fact, I've got the breakdown. Let me go to the introductory screen. It tells you all of the devices here. I know I've got them on the right side of my screen. It's kind of hard to see with my head in the way, but you can pop those out, have them on a separate screen or a separate window if you'd like as well. I'm keeping them there just so that they're easy to get to. And it's a full-blown Windows server. So now I'm in a Windows server device being able to work through these. I can also have these other servers that are here. There's another device that I can use in this IPsec lab and being able to work through it. And it takes you through each one of them section by section by section. So you can even have screenshots of exactly what you should be doing all throughout the process. So you don't have to stumble around trying to figure out, what do I click on in, I'll bring up a Windows 7 communication. What do I click on here to be able to set up IPsec? Well, it takes you through the Windows 7, the Windows 8. You're setting up the IPsec communication. You're setting up your tunnels between all of those. Such an easy way to get this running. It also includes sample questions for your Network Plus. Also includes the book from GTS Learning, the digital version of their book online to read. So you're not only getting a book, not only getting these labs to be able to work through, and the book also has links back to my videos, so everything's integrated there, all in one single package. And you don't have to set up any hardware. You don't have to install any software on your device. It all works inside of your browser, and it's special pricing if you follow my link. If you go to the GTS Learning website, you don't get the discount. You have to follow professormesser.com/netlabs, and you can try this for free for an hour. So feel free to go out to that link, professormesser.com/netlabs, get your free hour. See if this is for you. Maybe this works for you, maybe it doesn't. But for an hour, you can really go through some of these labs and get a feel for just how easy it is to perform some of these functions in this GTS Learning Live Labs. And of course, I want to thank GTS Learning for supporting what we do here in Messer Studios. We wouldn't be able to do it without their support as well. Well, I've got more questions for you. We've got more things to go through. So let's go through these pieces. I know whenever I start working through all of these different questions, I start writing these earlier in the week, and I'm looking at what you're sending me to be able to what should we be doing? What should we be learning? You're sending me options. Tell me more about the OSI model. I need to learn more about IPsec, or I need to understand more about troubleshooting. So I'll put a troubleshooting question in. This troubleshooting question was very specific to the instance of a mismatched MTU. So you have to know what a mismatched MTU is. It's a little bit of a challenge, isn't it? So that's your first step. If you know what a mismatched MTU is, then you need to understand how to troubleshoot it. So which of these would be the best way to troubleshoot? Let's put up that list right here. Would it be to view the load balancer configuration? Would it be to ping the connection? Would it be to run a trace route? Would I disable STP? Or would I test the cable for next? One of these would be the best way to troubleshoot a mismatched MTU, being able to work through those. You should be able to step through those. The answer in the last question was IPsec. That was the correct answer. You guys got that one. The majority of you got that one absolutely correct and work through those. If you think you know what the answer is, you can go out to Socrative.com, to the student login, do the Professor Messer login, and you'll be in the Professor Messer room. You'll be able to answer this particular question on mismatched MTUs. To send the code, don't put it in the chat room. I tell you in the study group what you do to get the MTU. That's part of obtaining the MTU, is knowing what to do with the code for the MTU. So that's why nobody's answering you where to send the code. You have to be able to watch the presentation to be able to answer or to know where to send the continuing education unit request. Kind of tricky there how I did that. That's part of the gig. You know, you'd have to be able to know to do that. So make sure that if you missed it, you may want to rewind a bit, go through that section again. Maybe you'd be able to figure that one out. And I'm sure some of you, I'm going to check my emails real quick while you're doing this. Yep, you're already sending me some of those as well. So that's working out. A lot of you are sending me continuing education units. It usually takes me usually less than a week. Sometimes I'll sit down on the weekend and send those out. So make sure you go through those pieces. Oh, if you were watching, then you absolutely caught it then. So it's not a problem because I absolutely said it, because a lot of you are already sending them in. So thank you for sending those. I will get you those responses as soon as possible on those pieces. So which of these would be the best ways to troubleshoot a mismatched MTU? How'd you do? Well, let's see how we did. Well, we got a couple of different ways to do this. I guess we're tied for first. We have around 25 to 30% said view the load balancer configuration. Next highest would be run a trace route. 26% said ping the connection. Only 9% said test the cable for next, which is near in crosstalk. And 2% said disable the spanning tree protocol, or STP. I've spelled those out for you. So the MTU is our maximum transmission unit. The MTU, we usually get into this scenario with MTUs when we are taking traffic and we're tunneling it within another mechanism, which requires that you're kind of putting more data onto these packets and indeed these frames as we're sending them through and being able to work through those. This is one wherever I start trying to get into the details of it, this is where I'm having to send the right size to get all the way through the connection without fragmenting anything. These devices along the path, if it's too big, I'm sending this traffic through. Wait, you're getting to a tunnel where I'm going to have to cut this up into smaller pieces. It sometimes will, depending on how we've configured our applications. But the problem is when we start fragmenting, it slows things down. We don't want to fragment. We want to have the maximum size possible going through the network without having to chop it up into pieces, send it through, and then stick it back together on the other side. If you can avoid that overhead, things just go that much faster. So the problem, though, is from you to the remote device, how do you know what the maximum transmission unit is going to be? Becomes a little difficult because there's no single way. We would have to go to every single device along the way and look at the configuration of that device to understand what the MTUs are, and that's just not practical. It's not something we can easily do, certainly not over the internet, sometimes hard to do on our own networks. And sometimes these devices will send us a message back that says, I'm not able to send this because you said don't fragment in your application and I can't send it. So it sends an ICMP message back saying, oh, by the way, I dropped this because I couldn't fragment, except sometimes we filter out ICMP and we never get the message. So this is a challenge. We want to be sure the traffic we're sending is right at the right size of what we're sending. An IP packet itself has a maximum size of about 1,500 bytes if we're not using jumbo frames. In this particular example, we're going to assume we're not using those jumbo frames. So to troubleshoot this, what you want to be able to do, and I talk about this in my troubleshooting video, is we're usually setting up these maximum sizes one time, or it's usually dictated by the method of communication that we're using over the network. So as I mentioned, we often see this if we're tunneling traffic. If we're sending traffic through an IPsec tunnel, similar to the question we were asking earlier, how do we encrypt or protect all of that traffic between sites? We build an IPsec tunnel. Well, if I've got an IPsec tunnel, then I've got to wrap around some IPsec information on the outside of this. My frame that was 1,500 bytes is now bigger. I can't send that. It's bigger than 1,500. So I would have to either change the maximum transmission size of my communication or fragment it. But if I'm saying don't fragment, that data is not going to get through. So the way you troubleshoot this is you use ping. Of all things, ping we use just to check uptime of devices, but it is exceptionally easy to use ping to troubleshoot an MTU. So you would use a ping function that says ping this device, but stick a certain amount of data within the ping communication. So with ping, you can set up a maximum size of 1,472 bytes. And the reason that's the maximum and not 1,500 is because that's the data that's inside the ping that you're sending. You've got 8 bytes of an ICMP header that goes on the front. You've got 20 bytes for your IP address. That means what's left is 1,472. So if you sent that, you'd be sending a 1,500 byte frame through the connection. If you don't get a ping response, then it didn't get through. And in my video, I demonstrate this process of going through this. So what you do is start decreasing the numbers. Well, will 1,200 bytes get through? Let's try that. It does. Okay, what about 1,300? What about 1,400? And then you start changing the number until you get to the right number that allows traffic through at the largest possible packet size. And at that point, you know what the MTU is, and you can adjust your devices to only send communication to those locations using this particular MTU. So it's very easy to make that work. You would not use Google to ping. You would ping from your workstation to be able to make this happen, or from a device that's on one side of the tunnel or one side of the communication to the other to make that happen. So that's one where if we want to look at how we did on this one, 27% of you said ping the connection. Those folks that answered B, ping the connection, you got that one absolutely correct. Well done with that piece of it. Well, there's another hour down. Can you believe we've gone through an hour of content already with these pieces? Obviously, you can continue to watch over the next hour. I'll open up the phone lines and we'll take questions from the chat rooms. We'll be able to talk about these. Of course, you can follow what we're doing on Twitter, professormesser.com/Twitter. Kind of hard to see with my big head in the way with those pieces, but that's really what it says. professormesser.com/YouTube. We'll also see what's happening on YouTube. Don't forget about my course notes, professormesser.com/MPCN, the network plus course notes. I tried to make it as easy as possible. I know that makes no sense, MPCN, but that's what it stands for, is network plus course notes. Don't forget your free hour of live labs that might be able to help you on the exam. So check that out at professormesser.com/netlabs. And of course, I do one of these every month. When am I doing the next one? That's a really good question. I didn't put it into this presentation today, but if you go to my website and you go to the front page of the site and you scroll down to the bottom, there's chat room. Hi, chat room. And here in December, you can see the one we're doing today is Network Plus. Security Plus is next week. A Plus in January. Network Plus in January on the 13th of January. And you can, of course, always at the top of my page, you can minimize the chat here real quick. Top of my page is a calendar link. That calendar link will show you exactly the same thing as well. So if you're wondering, when's the next live event, I put up your current time. So you'll see what your time is versus my time and a list of all of the different events. And if you click on them, you can even see the event details and you can even register into that list from there. So that might help you as well. Feel free to take advantage of that. I want to thank everybody for attending these study groups. I could not do this without your help, and it's a lot of fun too to step through this. If you're watching live, stick around for the next hour. We'll go through even more questions and answers on whatever you'd like to talk about. It could be networking, it could be A+, it could be Security Plus, it just could be life in general. We talk about nearly everything. I want to thank you for attending this hour of the study group, and we'll see you next time on the Network Plus study group. Thanks, everyone. Okay, my voice made it. Can you believe that? Let me pop my chat room back up. I can't see it. Got to move my iPad to be able to see this piece of it. There we go. And have those there. Yeah, so if you registered for the event today, you will get an email for the next event. I don't take you off the registration list unless you click at the bottom and say, please stop bothering me. I know that you'll see things that say, don't click an unsubscribe link. Well, if it's from me, you can click the unsubscribe link. It unsubscribes you. So I don't want to send you an email if you don't want to get it. So click that link and do that. I've had people send me messages that says, please stop sending this to me. And I go into the message they forwarded and I click the unsubscribe link. That's how I remove them. So you could skip that process and just click it yourself and being able to do that. Testing for an open and a short on a Cat5e cable, or really a copper cable in general. Testing for an open or a short is a simple cable tester. Where's my cable tester? I have one here somewhere. Let me find it. Well, it wouldn't necessarily be a cable certifier. And here's the differences. I think I even have pictures of these. In fact, I'll just Google this. We're just going to go to Google and we're going to look at a cable tester. I know you can't see this right quite yet. And we're going to look at the differences between these. So I just went to Google and I Googled cable tester, and I just went to the image link so you can see what this is. Cable testers are relatively, or at least the term cable tester, relatively simple thing. All it really checks is for continuity. It's checking, is pin 1 connected to pin 1 on the other side. You have two of these devices. You have one that's the master, even says right there, and one that's the remote. And these, you put one on one side of the link and one on the other side, and it lights up everything that is connected. Pin 1 is going to pin 1, pin 2 to pin 2, pin 3 to pin 3, and you can see there's continuity. So this really be good with the patch panel. You can't use this to test your crossover because pin 1 isn't going to pin 1. So that would not work, but it's great for testing. Do I have a short, which means is it not connecting, or are they connecting to each other? You can see that. You also can't use this to do any type of higher level of certifying. So someone in the chat room said use a certifier, which would work. A certifier could show you opens and shorts, but it shows you so much more than that. It's also much more expensive. This device, you could find a cable tester, $10 or $15 US, relatively inexpensive. It's effectively doing what a multimeter does, as they're saying in the chat room. A multimeter, you have two leads, put one lead on pin 1 and one lead on pin 1, set your multimeter for continuity, and if it beeps, pin 1 is connecting to pin 1. If pin 1 is beeping at pin 2, you know you don't have that wired properly, and being able to do that. Yeah, Amazon has great prices on cable testers and being able to work with those. Now, on this same page, there are some that have come up that are more of a certifier. I wouldn't call this more of a power meter. Let me find a real cable certifier. You know, you're getting into higher end telecommunications equipment when you're doing certifying of cables. It's testing how much frequency is being used on this connection. It's able to understand near and crosstalk. It's able to calculate how far down the cable the short might be. That's kind of nice because the cable tester can tell you that there's a short, there's a break in the cable. But is it close to me or is it on the other side? A cable certifier can actually tell you how far down the line it actually is broken or the short might be. So it's a great way to flip around on the Google side and see the types of capabilities that are there for these different devices. Let's do another one. Let's do a cable certifier and see what these look like. Certifier. These, as you can tell, are much more advanced devices. So here's a good example. Here's one from Ideal that's a cable certifier. Look, you're able to get a breakdown of, here it is, the exact device. We get a breakdown of what the frequency response was across this, how much signal loss or signal strength are we getting from one side to the other. We're able to do wire maps and links. We can, in this case, they even have a talk function. You got somebody at the other end with a headset, and if you do have continuity, you can talk to them through the cable tester. Yep, okay, that one's good. Go the next one. Go the next one. Okay, that one's good. Go the next one. Very useful to have that functionality there. So that's what the differences primarily are when you hear somebody talk about a cable tester and a cable certifier. Those are really the differences with those pieces and being able to work through them. Let's set up the phone lines and being able to work through. I don't think I have the phone lines running yet, so let's turn those on in case somebody wants to call. You don't have to. You could always just go in the chat room and put a question into there, and I will see those go through as well on the chat room side. So give me a moment, and I will click a few buttons on my side and bring up my Skype. I was really expecting there to be a much larger number of people complaining about my layer 3 switch. I'm a little disappointed, quite honestly. But that's life for me. I can live with the disappointment. We're just going to go with that. How about £?
Enter your
I will do that. There we go. Welcome. All right. That all works. So if you do want to call, don't spill your coffee. Instead, you go to there. I've got a phone number. So you can either go into the chat room and put questions into the chat room, or you can even actually call in. So the studio line 1-855-785-RJ45. That's 855-785-7545. That number again in New York, +1 for the country code, 855-785-7545, which actually works over Skype as well for free. For free. I pay for the phone calls. So that's one of those, and being able to work with them. A time domain reflectometer is generally a cable certifier. Yes, we generally will use those terms interchangeably when we're referring to a certifier. Yeah, so if it says TDR, it's doing some pretty cool stuff. The time domain reflectometer sending signals down, looking at the echo from those signals and making a determination of those. Yeah, Fluke has good testers. You saw the one from, which one did I bring up there? Was it, that was a Landtech from Ideal, wasn't it? Ideal has some great stuff too. The certifiers, much more expensive than the cable testers. So if you're interested in getting credit for watching this for continuing education, during the first hour, I gave you a secret keyword, and I told you exactly what you would do with that secret keyword to obtain continuing education credit. So you would have to go and find that information and be able to send that to me to be able to get that 1 hour of continuing education unit. We don't really talk about rebuilding RAID 5 so much here. That tends to be something from the A+ certification, but I think I did one of those in a study group where we talked about that. That also tends to be something that is an exam question. So I don't tend to talk about those either on those pieces, which is why I'm not answering that one, although you keep asking. There is, and I've done this on mine, is to have an extra drive available and swap out those drives on RAID 5. And I talked about, I think the question on an earlier study group I did on the A+ is, what do I do? If there's a RAID 5 failure, what's the process to recover from that? Do I have any stats on the pass-fail rate for the Network Plus exam? No, nobody does. CompTIA does not share that information for their Network Plus exam. So unfortunately, I don't have any details on the pass-fail rate because they don't tell anyone at all. So let's, I saw someone did call in. They apparently hung up, so they got terminated. You're welcome to call back. Lines are open, or just ask in the chat room. Be able to do that in there and being able to work through those pieces. And now all of the different the RAID 5, or whenever you're doing a RAID rebuild, it's always different depending on the RAID type, and it's always different depending on the exact array type you're using either. So yeah, I think a manufacturer's website would be a good one for detailed views. The overall idea of it is the same every time though, to be able to work through those pieces and work through all of those. So I have the question in the chat room is, have I ever thought of doing Network Plus pop quiz questions? I do daily pop quiz questions for A+, and I have considered doing some for Network Plus, but as you can imagine they are time consuming. It takes quite a bit of time just to come up with 5 new questions a week for A+, to write them out, post them on the website, queue them up in the blasters, and have everything go out automatically. And it's not like it's overwhelming. It's not difficult to do that. It's just time consuming to put those together, because I want the questions to be of a high quality. Anybody can ask, what port number does SSH use? Okay, that's a fine question, and it's important you know that information. But I want you to think about more detail of the question. Generally, if it's a slow day, maybe that would work. I have thought of starting slow though. What if I did one a week, and that worked out? Maybe I could do more of them. But at the moment, it's a time motion study. It's how much can I do in a single day to get farther along of what I want to do. And that's why I've kind of delayed. I've mentioned I've wanted to do that. I have kind of delayed going out and creating daily pop quiz questions, because I just don't want to do it, then realize I just don't have the time and then drop it. No, but that's not good for anybody. But instead I do this, where once a month we do a bunch of questions and go through them. I think that's working out pretty well. I think maybe, sort of, kind of. That's one wherever I start working through the problems and trying to figure it all out, that does become a challenge. Time is an issue, being able to work through those. That's why I'm always working through those pieces of it and trying to get those going. It is another hot chocolate day, a hot beverage. I almost went with coffee today, but it's a cool day. It's freezing here at our Florida headquarters. You can see I'm wearing a sweater, and the temperature is all the way up to 70. So it's freezing here. I probably won't need this sweater when I walk out of this room, but I did when I walked in. So that's what that was about. What job do I find most Network Plus people are hired for? It really does range quite broadly. There are, and I think it's different depending on your geography as well. Different parts of the country and different countries use these certifications or have a consideration towards these certifications in different ways. So make sure that you look to see what people are doing with these certifications. Go out to the main job sites and see, for the people who are looking for Network Plus, what are they hiring? Is it a help desk position? Generally is not. It generally is more on the network side, maybe entry-level network administrator, where you can start to learn the ropes. You usually would have some experience behind you to make that happen, although it can help you on the help desk because you get a lot of networking questions in the help desk. It's nice to be able to redirect or know exactly how to solve some of those issues. There is... the best way, I think, is to go out and look at the job postings. Go out to Monster, go out to Indeed, go out to Dice, go out to the ones that are important in your area and see what the local companies are asking for. And look through a network administrator, entry level, or network administrator 1, or help desk 3, or see what different jobs are out there that they're looking for, or if you can, search for Network Plus and be able to do that. Sometimes that can be difficult. Some people are on these certification sites and they don't let you search for anything as a plus in it, which that becomes a little more difficult for me whenever I'm trying to get through those pieces too. The question in the chat room is a question about the health IT exam. This is more of a broader question. CompTIA has a healthcare IT exam, and for some reason, they have had traditionally a love-hate relationship with this exam. It's the CompTIA Healthcare IT Technician, HIT 001. And at the end of last year, they said that, it was actually before the end of last year, we're going to retire this and actually finish it. This exam will not be available after December 31st, 2014, I think it was. And they changed their mind. I guess they had a lot of people communicate to them like, why are you getting rid of this exam? This has something very specific. And if you're in healthcare, you understand this completely. Healthcare is its own science, if you will. It's its own world. Has its very specific requirements for networking because you're dealing with people's lives. You're dealing with the most important thing we have. You're not dealing with financials. You're not dealing with transportation. If your network goes down, you can't get email at an insurance company. Nobody really died. Not, at least not, normally for normal downtime. If your network goes down at a hospital, that is a potential life-threatening situation. So obviously their infrastructure and their processes and their applications are not only unique, they have a different level of severity associated with them. So CompTIA decided we're keeping it, and they have so far not announced a retirement for it. So I'm not sure what to think of healthcare IT. If you're in healthcare, a lot of healthcare organizations, their IT departments recognize the certification and can appreciate it. It's really up to the organization, like I mentioned before, but that may be one where being able to step through those links and understand who's asking for this might help as well. I think that can really be useful to be able to work through those and understand more about how this is really gonna operate. So I don't have a good answer for you. I don't know if CompTIA is still in a love relationship. Are they in the good side of this one? They've not announced anything retirement-wise, and maybe because people have caught on that it's a good thing. Obviously, if you're not in healthcare, not really that important to be able to work through those and being able to have those. Yes, this on behind me, behind my Rubik's Cube, my digital Rubik's Cube, is a picture that my son did years ago of an Atari 2600 joystick controller. Isn't that great? That's he was young. I mean, like elementary school young when he did that. But he loved the older Nintendos. He loved the old Ataris. And I had an old Atari 2600 that I loved when I was a kid. So that was pretty cool. So I kept that picture. That's a good one. I like it. Your A Plus expires January 27th. If you take the Network Plus before that date, is there anything else you need to do to renew the A Plus, or does it happen automatically? It happens automatically. You don't have to do anything else on the CompTIA side as long as it's synced up with your CompTIA account information. And generally you do that. When you sign up for the exam, you're giving them your CompTIA details so that they can do that. If you want more on the CompTIA renewals, there is a separate renewal continuing education section of the website. Right at the top, it says continuing education that you can't see because my head is over, but it's right here. It's over on this side. You can't, which way is it? I'm backwards, so it's right there. Continuing education, where the yellow is. The renewing your certification and working through it, and it gives you details about renewing and what of those can renew automatically. They have a breakdown, renew with a higher level CompTIA certification, and they give you a link that takes you to a page that shows you the hierarchy. So if you take the Network Plus, it renews the A Plus. If you take the CASP, the CompTIA Advanced Security Practitioner, it renews Security Plus, Network Plus, and A Plus. So, and it does that without you having to pay anything. There's no maintenance fees. There's no costs associated with it. There's nothing else you have to do. Just automatically renews everything. So it makes it easy to make that happen. Question in the chat room. How many subnet questions on the Network Plus? Well, nobody knows really, right? Everybody's Network Plus exam's a little bit different. One of the things you may want to do, and I highly recommend you do it, is to get the exam objectives. One quick way to do this would be to go to professormesser.com/objectives. You can also Google the N10006 with a file type of :PDF. There's a little shortcut for you that takes you right to a PDF of the N10006 exam objectives. Let's look to see IP subnetting and how it fits into this list of things. Now, the subnetting piece of this, as you can see, I'm scrolling through pages and pages and pages and pages of things. And finally, we get to a section that says subnetting. Subnetting is a piece of a section under IPv4 that is within the 1.8 domain option, 1.8 really subject matter under domain 1. And of course, we have 5 separate domains. So in the big scheme of things, if I had to estimate how many subnetting, IPv4 subnetting questions you might get one. You might get 0, considering how much information is here. You might you might get 2. I can't imagine getting more than 2. That would be just a bad roll of the dice. That's a bad random number generator for you, and being able to work through that. So I think that's where I do those and think through those pieces. I don't have any plans currently to do a 7680 Microsoft Windows 7 study group. There have been a few people asking about it, but not a lot. So no, I haven't. I haven't even considered it. And I must have said Siri somewhere because she thought I was talking to her. I was not Siri. Excuse me again. We're getting into that second hour throat there. The code again for CEU credit, we won't tell you. So that is one where you have to get the CEU credit information and what to do with it by watching the first hour of the study group and being able to work through those. Let's see what other questions might be in the chat room today. Check those pieces. Have a look at those and see what's there. Oh yes, the old videos still have that introductory music on them, don't they? That's one where whenever I start looking through my videos, I kind of like the old ones and being able to work through those and working through the introductory music. I don't do the intro music anymore. There's no music in any of my videos, you'll notice, because some countries will block videos that have any type of music in them whatsoever, whether it is licensed properly or not. So to avoid that, I don't put any music in, and that way anybody in the world can watch these without YouTube filtering them. Some people in the chat room have talked about the CEH and using the certified ethical hacker as a way to renew their A+ certification. There are a number of third-party certifications, not just from that single company for the CEH, but for other organizations, Microsoft, Cisco, VMware, and many, many, many others you can use to get credits towards renewing your CompTIA certifications. If you renew your certification using CompTIA certifications, you don't have to pay the annual maintenance continuing education fees. If you use a different manufacturer certification, like for instance, the EC Council's Certified Ethical Hacker, if you use that to renew your certification, you have to pay the annual maintenance fees. So that's the catch with those. I personally like the content that is in this horribly named ethical hacking certification. I like what's in there that you're learning. I hate the name, and I'm not very impressed with the company that offers it. So I don't recommend the CEH because I have not been very pleased with how they handle their back-end processes and keep your information private, keep your information safe. I will never get a certification from the CEH folks, the EC Council. I don't have to. That's easy for me to say because I don't need to get a certification from them. But if I did, I would avoid it myself personally at all costs. However, I like the content that's in the certification. So I am a little torn there that I like that piece of it. But you're not going to get a job as a certified ethical hacker. Statistically speaking, there aren't very many of them out there. It's a very niche part of network security. For network security, it's interesting to know how to hack. It's sexy. It's cool. That's not what you're going to be doing as a network security person. So you'd be better off getting a CISSP, which is really what the industry looks at as the premier security certification. I recognize that there are additional requirements and prerequisites that may limit you from getting that right off the bat. But ISC Squared has the CISSP, and that's what people really look at, the Certified Information Systems Security Professional, as what is the gold standard in network security from a certification perspective. It's the very good thing that people look for primarily in our field. But you have to have a certain amount of real world experience, and you have to have someone who has the CISSP to give you the nod to be able to take the exam. They have to sponsor you. They have to sign off that, yes, you are someone who should be taking this exam. So it's one where There's a lot more stringent requirements, and that I think is why people look at it as a much more advantageous certification. Let's go to the phones. The 504 area code is calling. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hey, my name is Paul. I'm calling from New Orleans. How are you?
How's New Orleans? I haven't been there in a while. I need to get back.
Oh, yes, you do. We got more drinks down here.
Well, that's my kind of place. What can we do for you, Paul?
Well, I'm studying for the A+ exam right now, but I decided to jump into the network study group because I'm going to be taking that one directly after the A+ exam.
Okay.
Now, I just found out that the 800 exam had ended in October. And my question to you is it a better idea to take the 900 edition that you've already been talking about, or use the 6-month expiration window for the 800?
It's sort of, you've got now, at least at this late date, a good, you can make this decision either way. And here's the criteria I would consider when looking at this. For those of you not familiar, when CompTIA introduces a new version of their exam, and they update their exams about every 3 years, when they introduce a new version of the exam, they generally give you 6 months to finish up the current version. That way, if you've been studying for a certain set of exam objectives, you don't have to stop everything you're doing and reset yourself to some of this new content. And it doesn't matter which exam you take, whether you take for the A+, the 800 series version, or the 900 series version, you get exactly the same certification. It says A+ certified. It doesn't say A+ certified 800 or A+ certified 900. It just says A+ certified because they know you're going to have to renew this in 3 years anyway to maintain the certification. And the information on the 800, quite honestly, is still pretty well up to date. I recognize there are things on there that are a little bit older, operating system wise and other ways. Plus, you have now the 900 series A+ exam isn't even out yet. It is introduced and will be available on December the 15th. They have introduced the exam objectives, so you can see what's on the exam. I'm already making videos for them and putting them on my website. So this week coming up, they will finally have the exams available for you to take at a testing center. But your 800 series exams will continue to be available. The English language version of the exams you can take up until June the 30th of 2016. So you've got 6 months plus, you got almost 6.5 months plus to be able to study up for the 800 series. Now, knowing what I've seen between the 800 exam objectives and the 900 series exam objectives, because I've gone through all of them and I've already created all my video content. I just haven't shot all the videos yet, but I've already created all the content. I've already built out my course notes for the 900 series. They're available on my website. And I've gone through all of the exam objectives with a fine-tooth comb. And I can tell you the 900 series exam is a little more challenging. Although they did get rid of Windows XP, they introduced a number of new objectives around Mac OS X and Linux. And they introduced over 20 new command lines in Linux that you have to know. That's just one thing that you would have to know to be able to get that done. It seems to be a broader exam than the 800 series is, and I think the 800 series exam is a little bit easier because of that. You might also want to keep in mind that the 900 series exam doesn't have a lot of study materials available for it yet because it's brand new. A lot of publishers are just introducing their books right now because we just got the exam objectives, and it takes time to build the content to be able to make the books and publish them and get them to the printer and have them to Amazon and have them available for you to buy. This takes a long time. And creating videos takes a long time. I've got the first 2 sections of my videos done, and I'm just shooting as fast as I can go, but it's time consuming. So if you're very familiar with the topics, the 900 exam might be a fine one to take. I don't think many employers care which one you have. They just want you to have your A+ certification. There have been very rare occasions where an employer has said, I want you to get the newer version of this. But a lot of employers don't even know there's a new version. They just know A+, and they want you to be A+ certified. And if you think you can get it completed by June 30th, the 800 series might be strategically an easier, faster, and a better exam to get at this point that we're talking on December the 9th of 2015, if that makes sense, Paul.
Oh, yes, it does. Definitely. And also, I have another question if
Sure.
you have time for it.
Absolutely.
When it comes down to watching the videos and studying the book, do you recommend watching your videos and studying the book, or maybe I could just watch the videos and call it a day?
I think you should use as many study materials as possible. And that's because you learn different ways from different types of materials. And there's also, I can only provide so much information in a video that on a piece of paper can be compacted down to an even smaller or even more detailed amount just because of the medium of video. Now, I've designed my videos to cover every topic that's on the exam objectives. So there have been people that have told me, I only watched your videos and I went in and took the exam and I passed. Now, of course, I have no idea what their background was prior to that, but that's how I designed them. So you potentially could, but books are so inexpensive, relatively speaking. You know, a $15 investment can get you a really good A+ book, and that's going to fill in any of the gaps in your mind and present information in a different way that might help you understand the topics from the videos. So I highly recommend to people that if you're going to be studying for exam, don't limit yourself. Use as many things as you can. Watch my videos. Get a good book to read. Get some sample questions. There's some great sample question books out there. Get a book that already has sample questions in it or a sample set of tests that you can take on your computer. Do everything you can to learn information in different ways, and you'll be best prepared for the exam. Don't ever rely on any one thing, no matter how good it might be.
That's understandable.
And then you'll have the best possible percentage of passing that exam, and that's what you want when you walk in the door.
I understand.
Well, great.
And it's pretty much all I got. Thank you.
Paul, thank you so much for calling. And I'm going to make plans right now to get back down to New Orleans as soon as possible. Thanks for calling.
All right. Most appreciated. Thank you.
I miss that town. I was there 5 years ago. It was for a meeting. That's the worst time to go to a city, is when you're there for a meeting. You have that small gap of time at night. You never get to see all the things you want to take, or see all the things you want to see and do all the things you want to do. And just take the time it really requires to see a town, especially one as rich as that town. There's just so much to see and so much to do. So let's see, back to the chat rooms and the things that are here. DHCP is covered a bit in the A+ exam now, so there is a bit more DHCP. They did change around the networking piece on the A+ exam a bit with the 900 series to be more focused on the desktop. They removed a lot of the subnetting piece of it. You don't need to know class-based subnetting, for instance, because if you're setting up a workstation, who cares what the class of the IP address is? What you need to know is, what do you need to configure this device as to be able to have it communicate? So you need your IP address, subnet mask. You need to understand DNS. You need to understand DHCP. Link level, link local addressing is covered for both IPv4 and IPv6 on the A+ exam now. So I found that interesting. It's now getting much more network centric, but from the perspective of the end user, and not so much as the network administrator. That's really what the Network Plus exam is for, and being able to work through all of those pieces. Let's have look at some more of these. I would love to see more Microsoft and Cisco videos as well. It's all about timing. Putting together a video course is an excruciatingly involved process that is very time consuming. At least the way that I like to be able to do it and the quality I'm looking for is very time consuming. So I'm now shooting my A+ videos. The shooting part of the video is the easiest part. You've already done all the hard work, because the first thing I do is look at the exam objectives. I create a structure of videos of what I think these will be based on the objectives. So I kind of lay them out in these topics will go together, these topics will go together. And I create for a section of videos. There might be 3 or 4 videos. There might be 1 video in a section. And then I build the content. So I sit down, I go through every possible source of content I have, the things that I know, I double check against other places. I try to do double and triple checking when I'm putting numbers and statistics on the screen, because I don't want to have to go back and reshoot or re-edit. Let's get it right the first time. Go through all those pieces, make sure it's structured in a way where I'm getting across to you what I think is going to be important for the exam. So I have a scenario, I'm giving you, here's why it's important, and here's the topic itself. And we go through those. That takes months to do an entire course, literally 2 to 3 months, sometimes more, to put together a course like that. And that's from doing it every day. So once we're done with that, then I generally will build course notes. So you'll have something you can reference. And I build those out. That doesn't take very long, a week or 2. And then you shoot the video, and by then the content's already created. I'm just sitting in front of the camera like I'm now talking to the content. I've already, in my mind, I've already worked on the content for so long, I know what I want to tell you. And I've got the bulleted views. I just go through and give you a summary of what I want to be sure you know about. And then maybe even do the demonstrations of things. Those can take a little bit of time to set up, but that's not too bad. Show you how to do the pings and how to do the trace routes and how to set up those pieces that are there. And that's why there aren't any Cisco or Microsoft videos, because it takes so long. It's a real commitment. If I'm going to do an exam, I'm going to spend a lot of time on it. So what do I want to do that's going to be able to have, well, it's a combination of different things. I don't want to get into the inside baseball piece, but because they are free videos, I want to have as many people as possible watching them, because that's what brings in the revenue to keep everything else going. So it's part of what brings in revenue to keep everything else going. So it's important that I get a topic that people will want to watch. I'd love to do Apple certification videos. That'll be a lot of fun. But the number of people that need those videos compared to the number of people that might need a Microsoft or Cisco video, it's very different. So it's one of those things I have to think about whenever I'm putting together these plans of what I'm going to do, because that's a bit of a challenge from a business perspective. I have to make those business decisions about what's next. And I already have the next year mapped out. So we'll finish up these A+ videos, and there's a huge number of projects I've already got on the list. We're already starting some of them behind the scenes. That's why I have a marketing person now. There's a huge amount of content to do, and a lot of things that are coming, and new products that are happening, and different kinds of videos. And I want to be able to expand out and do different kinds of media with these things as well. So we got to work at that. I recognize there's a lot of people asking about those, being able to work with it. So it's a little bit of a challenge. The Storage Plus certification, I think you're right, is retiring on January 15th. Is it worth grabbing? Well, that's up to what you plan to do with it. Is any certification worthwhile? Every certification is worthwhile. No certifications are worthwhile. It depends on what you plan to do with it. So if you have an employer that would love to see you with that cert, absolutely. If you want to learn that information for yourself, there's a lot of value for that, I think. You'll be able to learn this information, pass the certification. It feels good to pass. It feels good to learn that information. But then you learn that information and you use it later on in your career, which is actually useful too. People kind of forget that certifications teach you stuff. And they don't teach you everything. That's not what a certification is designed to do. It's not designed to replace experience. It's not designed to replace a formal education, although for some reason people like to compare those things as if they are somehow comparable. They're not. They are different, and they provide a different capability, different set of skills in a different way. And you learn a lot. The A+ exam taught me a lot, and I already worked with computers for 15 years when I took it. So is it worth grabbing? It's worth grabbing if it's worth grabbing to you. That's the important part. And that's the most important part when looking at a certification, I think. We've got in the queue, we have the 330 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hey, my name is Matt. I'm from Youngstown, Ohio.
Hey, Matt. Thanks for calling.
And I've been watching a little bit of your videos on YouTube for the Network Plus I'm gonna schedule it for January.
Great.
But I was just wondering if you have you ever heard of Field Nation or any one of those sites?
I didn't catch the term. What was the word? Am I familiar with whom?
Yeah. Have you ever used Field Nation?
I'm not familiar with that. How would I spell that? Maybe I'm not hearing it right.
I put it in the chat.
Okay, that would be a good place to.
It's like an
Field
online
Nation.
contract platform.
I am not familiar with Field Nation. What do they do? I'm popping up their website
like
as we're talking.
Like freelancing.
Nice. There's so many more of those out there in the world, because it's probably one of the biggest segments of websites that you can find these days are people setting up a site where you effectively will freelance or have available skills that other people can take advantage of. And this clearly is one of those on Field Nation. I've not worked with them or even seen them before, but I like the idea of it. There's a few of them like this that are out there. I'm just not at all familiar with the specific organization or what they do, but I like the idea. This is one, it's also an opportunity, I think. Whenever we talk about how do I get a job or how do I get a better job, certification's an aspect of this, but a big piece that people sometimes dismiss is the in-person networking side of things, not the data networking, but the person networking part. Because you are usually hired by people that know you and like you. And the more people you know and the more people you like and they like you, the better opportunity you'll have when you're looking for those positions. So the problem a lot of people have is they've never been in front of people to be able to make them understand their skills. And I think this is a good opportunity if you're starting out and you know these things, or you can work with somebody else to go out and do a network installation, to do a switch reconfiguration, to run cable, work at the physical level to really understand what's happening at the first lower levels. That's a great opportunity. I don't know about this specific organization and how they are and what they do, but it's certainly something worth investigating, not only them, but others that are out there as well, to see if maybe that would be a good place to start getting your feet wet.
Yeah, I know a lot of people talk about that whole experience loop where you have to have a job to get experience,
Yep.
and you have to get a job to gain that experience. So I used Field Nation for a few months, and I was able to get some experience.
Now, when you used it, what was your experience like? What did you do, and what was the process you went through, and what type of experience did you end up getting?
Well, before I did it, I didn't really have an IT job. I just had my A+ certification, and you can set up like a profile and then list your certifications and basically where you bid on jobs. But the majority of what I do is point of sale. And
you said point of sale. You kind of focus on the retail offices.
Yeah, there's different things like hardware, break fix, and sometimes there's new installations. It's a perfect opportunity to gain experience right after you get certified.
And I imagine also is this usually people that are looking for, just a warm body in the room that they can train as they go? Is it that the kind of thing? Like they're setting up a place and they need local help to do that?
Yeah. Most of it's not. There's no residential work, but it's not like Home Advisor. Or those are where the end user would actually call them
right.
for the work. These are just for companies.
That's brilliant. It's something we used to do whenever I would work with large companies or work in large companies. I would be on the help desk, but there would be a group of people that over the weekend would be setting up a new network, and I would volunteer to come in and help them with that because I wanted to learn the network side of things. And you learn a huge amount of information just by sponging off the smart people that are in the room that you can ask questions about without bothering them too much. Why did we do that? How did that work? Why are you running it that direction? And after a while, these things kind of soak in. I didn't have this available at the time, but if I had the opportunity to go in when somebody was setting up a warehouse, setting up a point of sale for a retail establishment, running the networks and setting up the communications. That's a fantastic opportunity from an experience, and you still get to meet the local people and of course the people in these other companies as well.
Yeah, and I remember my first job. I had to set up a router using PuTTY.
Yep.
A lot of times you just ask questions, and it's not so nervous, like when you think about it, because there's always support, and it's a great way to learn and being a mentor.
I love that idea. So the website there, fieldnation.com, that may be a great place to get some experience. And now you get to stick that on a resume when you start going into other places.
Yeah.
There are, and I've been to some of these larger companies, these larger retail establishments, the blue company, the yellow company, there's an orange company. These companies have these thousands of remote locations, and they don't have someone on site at that remote location. They have kind of a cookie cutter configuration at each one of those, but they still need local support sometimes to go in and replace a wireless access point or do a swap break fix for a switch. All they want you to do, take the switch out of the rack, put the new one in, power it up, connect to it, maybe give it an IP address, and then step back. That's great experience. And if you can find that in your particular geography, you should absolutely take advantage of it. Is there one other thing about Field Nation? How does it work then? Do you bid on a particular job that I'm willing to get this amount of money, or are they looking for a certain number of people at a certain rate?
Oh, it kind of works both ways. There's something called Preferred Network, and that's for like recruitment. And I'm in a few of them for a company called NCR.
Yep.
And then I'm sure you probably heard of them before.
Sure. Yep.
But, that works by they just send you calls. They call you up and ask if you're willing to do this. And of course, as a contractor, you have to pretty much accept as much calls as you can get.
Right.
That's how you make money. And then a lot of jobs, it's kind of like eBay. You can bid on them. Sometimes what I do is I was doing this job for IP camera installation, and it was like $300 some to do. I bid $200, and I got the job.
Nice.
Just to gain experience.
Right.
So you can always find work.
That's fantastic. What a great advice and another opportunity. I also recommend for people, because you may be in a geography where there may not be a lot of these jobs there, but there almost always is a user group of some kind. That's one of my go-tos as well, because there's companies in your area that attend a Microsoft user group, a VMware user group, a Cisco user group, and that's another opportunity to meet people who are doing the same type of jobs that you would like to do, except they're in these local companies, and it's an opportunity, that human networking we spoke about, and being able to make that happen as well. So a couple of different ways there that you could go about finding experience where usually none exists. And that is, I think you're absolutely right, the biggest challenge, Matt.
Yeah, that's a great definition of that, because I had a really tough time trying to get into help desk. I didn't have a degree. I'm working on it now.
I think it's a great place to start. I appreciate the recommendation, and maybe we'll have some other people try it out and hear what they think as well.
Okay, that sounds good.
Thanks for calling.
All right, thank you.
I love that idea, though, of sort of making a job where none existed, and suddenly there it is. Okay, I'll do it for this amount. That's one of the things I even recommend to people. If you are in a big company and you're at the help desk, your company somewhere has a network team that is doing something every weekend, practically every weekend, because it's sort of the nature of networking. They're coming in and they're running new cables, or they are setting up a new set of a conference room or a training facility, and they're pulling a bunch of machines out of boxes, putting them on the desk, plugging them in. It's very menial, in some ways very non-technical, but it is ways to learn the people who are in the networking group, work with them on setting these things up. It's one more warm body that helps get these things running. And you get to understand what the process is, and maybe even learn more about things that you didn't know about. And that's what all this is about. as well in getting those there. That was a great call, Matt. Thank you. So let's go back to some of the questions because my voice is even holding out at least for another 5 minutes, right? In those pieces. We talked earlier about the Microsoft exams, the 7680. I don't think they've changed the 7680 at all. The exam objectives are the same as the ones that I use. So for those of you asking, is it different? Is it the same as the current? Microsoft doesn't tend to change their exams. They write their exams for a particular topic, and then as the technology matures or is updated, that topic naturally becomes less important. It sort of retires on its own. For instance, I had an MCSE for Windows NT. That's a very valuable certification today. Obviously, I can't really use that certification because nobody's using Windows NT any longer. So, but Microsoft has Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, Windows Server videos, and those Windows videos now are built for that. And when they build it out, it's kind of done because that technology is not going to change and they're not going to update the details. They're simply going to make a new one that allows you to do that. So it's kind of nice to have that there. A question about performance-based questions. It's a little bit of a challenge because we don't know what performance-based questions may be asked on any of these exams. A performance-based question with CompTIA, they obviously will ask you multiple choice, but there will be a number of questions at the beginning of the exam that are performance-based. There is a video on YouTube that talks about performance-based questions from CompTIA. It really talks about the exam experience in general. If you've never taken an exam from CompTIA, it might be useful to go through this video called Taking a CompTIA Exam. And it goes through with the lovely music. There it is. What is it like? That's a good question. And they take you through the exam. Here's what it looks like. Here's what you'll see on the screen. Look, it's trying to flag me for a review. This type of thing that you have on these exams and understanding what will be expected kind of gets rid of a lot of the anxiety. In this, they also have the different kind of questions they might ask. Multiple choice, fill in the blank, matching. They have exhibits. They might pop up with a graphic that you need to answer from that. And what they call performance-based, which in this case is really all of these things we're talking about have been performance-based, but this one happens to be at the command line. So they may ask you to do something at the command line to make that happen as well. So all of those would be what I would consider performance-based questions and being able to work through those. So go out to YouTube. The video is called, it's on CompTIA's channel, and it's called Taking a CompTIA Exam. Here it is, Taking a CompTIA Exam. So I just did it full screen and I didn't want to. So there we go, theater mode. Taking a CompTIA Exam on the CompTIA channel. It's a pretty good one. You know, it's very short, 3 minutes, 30 seconds, and you're in and you're out. Kind of tells you everything you need to know and being able to work through it. I think that's one that I like taking those videos or watching those videos that give me an idea what to expect because I get very nervous when I'm ready to go into an exam and being able to work through it. I never know what I'm going to run into. And if at least something can make me feel better about the experience overall and I can concentrate on the content, well then, yeah, we're in good shape and being able to work through those pieces. I like the option of knowing those things and being able to work through them and understand those pieces. Before we finish up, let me remind you that we do have another study group for Network Plus that will be in, we do one of these every month. So in January, the 13th will be the next Network Plus study group. Now, if you do have your A Plus or your Network Plus and you need continuing education units, I told you in the first hour how you can get an hour for this one. If you need additional hours, my Security Plus study group is next week, same time. It's on Wednesday, the 16th at noon Eastern time. And I'm more than happy to give you an hour of credit because you only have to, this hour of CEU credit has to be from a topic that was on your exam. And security obviously was a topic on the A Plus exam and obviously a topic on the Network Plus exam. So you can use your Security Plus study group to also gain CEUs for the A Plus and the Network Plus, and we'll do the Q&A and we'll do the calls and we'll do everything we did today just sort of in the same way. of doing those pieces. I also want to remind you that on my website, if you wanted to be able to get in touch with me, there is a contact us link at the top of the page. There is also, if you type in professormesser.com/Twitter/YouTube/Facebook/Instagram/ whatever it is, you will find me on the social media things, and you'll be able to do that as well. Check the calendar if you want to be able to find out when any of my live events might be. And if you have comments about anything, feel free to hit the contact us link at the top of the page or the bottom of the page. It's really contact me. It just goes to my phone and I see what's going on anytime you do that. So that's something I like to respond back personally to those things as well. If you are sending a continuing education unit, I go through those myself and do them. So if you have something you'd like to put in there, I do read through those and make sure those. This video itself will be available if you're watching this live. The replay of this is available immediately afterwards. YouTube spends a couple of minutes to process it, and then you can watch it from the very beginning again as much as you'd like. How exciting would that be? I want to thank everyone for attending. I would not be able to do these study groups without you, and they're phenomenal fun. We're going to keep doing them as long as I'm able to keep making these videos, because why wouldn't you? Thanks for attending. Thanks for all your support. Thanks for your questions throughout the month. And we'll see you next month on the Network Plus Study Group. Thanks, everyone.